Muy bien, muy buenos días a todos los que se han dado el
Good
tiempo de
morning,
unirse el día
everybody,
de
and
hoy
thank you for
a
taking the
este
time to join us
webinar
today to join
sobre el
this
sistema de
webinar
certificación de
on
la
the
Organización Internacional de Comercio
OIML
Legal. Para
Certification
todos los
System.
participantes,
So for
les
all
informamos que ustedes tienen en
participants, I'd like
su
to inform you that
inferior de
in your
interpretación
menu at the
la
bottom of your
opción de
screen,
interpretación
you have
simultánea. Por
the
favor,
simultaneous interpretation
activarla y
option. So
seleccionar el
please
idioma
activate it and
de
choose the
preferencia.
language
También
you
está
prefer to
activo el momento
hear.
de preguntas y
Also,
respuestas, en donde
we
vamos
have
a
the question
recibir
and
valoración
answer
continua.
module activated, and you can post
Reciban
your
un
questions there
fraternos
and
saludos de
comments.
parte de
I'd
Andrea
like
Melo,
to greet
presidenta
you
de
on
la
behalf of
Federación
Andrea
Internacional de
Mello,
Acreditación.
the chair of the
Tenemos por el día de hoy,
IAAC,
esperemos
who
que
isn't with
pueda
us
estar el
today.
cierre, pero
We hope she can be
quería
here at
emitir
the
este saludo
closing
por
of this
parte
event,
de
but I
nuestra
wanted to
presidencia.
transmit her
Las
greetings to
palabras
all of you.
introductorias están a
The
cargo de Robert
introduction,
Naki,
that
quien
will
nos
be
acompaña
by
como un referente
Robert
internacional en sistemas
Naki,
de gestión de
and
calidad,
he will be
acreditación y
here.
metrología. Con más de una década de
He
experiencia
has over a decade of
fortaleciendo la confianza
experience
en los resultados de
strengthening the
medición.
trust in
Ha
the
integrado
results
comités
of
técnicos a
measurement,
nivel nacional e
and
internacional
he's carried
y
out
actualmente
national,
se
international
desempeña como director
tests. And right now,
del
he is the
Programa
interim
Nacional de
director
Acreditación
of the National
Voluntaria de
Voluntary
Laboratorios.
Accreditation Program for
Además,
Laboratory.
es un formador
He is
comprometido con
also
el
a
desarrollo
committed
de
trainer with
capacidades
devoting
calidad y
time
metrología.
to quality,
Bienvenido,
to
Robert. Adelante.
the capacity building. Go ahead, Robert.
All right. Thank you very much, Veronica, for the introduction, and welcome everybody to today's webinar. We thank you for taking the time to join us today. Excuse me. So first of all, I want to also just give a quick thank to our panelists, excuse me, that are joining us. Mr. Pedro Perez, Mark Schmidt, and Paul Dixon, and I are all be going through the different topics today. So Anna Maria or Fernay, should I start with projecting my presentation at this moment for the liaison? Okay, great.
Yes, you can do
Perfect.
it.
Thank you.
Sorry, Rob.
Yes.
Right now, no, it's only introduction of the webinar, and the
Oh, okay.
next
Just an
8
introduction.
minutes about that.
Sorry, misunderstood. Yeah, forgive me. Maybe the coffee isn't working so well this morning, so I need to get the caffeine in my brain working a little bit more. So, first of all, just a welcome to everyone. So a brief introduction, I guess, perhaps is in order of the folks that are on the panel joining us today. So, I will start with Paul Dixon, who is going to be representing OIML and going over an introduction of the OIML-CS system. So we're very happy to have Paul here to give that perspective. We have Mark Schmidt, who is joining us, and he will be giving the perspective from, I guess, a user, a conformity assessment body, providing these type of certificates into the industry and giving the perspective of Europe and how it's been implemented there and how it's working. And we really appreciate Mark's participation. Pedro is going to be discussing about how the system is being used in the Americas and giving some perspective on an area where maybe the system is a bit newer and being implemented there. And so we hope that as myself, as the ILAC liaison to OIML, that will give a nice broad perspective of what the system is, how it's being used in Europe and the Americas, and how ILAC is working together with OIML to hopefully grow this program, support OIML, and OIML supporting us as it's implemented across the world. So I hope that was a decent introduction, and thank you again. I'm very excited about the webinar. So at this point, I'll turn it back over and we'll get started with, I believe Paul is first. So thank you, Veronica.
Sí, muchas gracias, Robert, por esas palabras introductorias y precisamente vamos a invitar
Thank you,
con
Rob, for
nosotros a la
that
discusión
introduction.
una
And so
breve
now Paul Dixon
introducción
is
acerca del
with us today.
programa
He's
de
going to give an introduction
certificación
about the certification program
OIML, ¿no?
the OIML certification program. He is the Assistant Director of the OIML. He has contributed actively to strengthening the international metrology systems in this field, and his work focuses on harmonization of standards and promoting technical cooperation between the countries. He has a background in international organizations that work on measurement and quality. Please go ahead, Paul.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob and Veronica.
Gracias, Rob y Veronica, por la
for some reason, sorry, my video went off. Okay, I would like to talk to you today about the OIML certification system. I have a presentation for you which will give an introduction initially to the OIML, so you have a bit more of a background as to who we are as an organization. I'll then talk in more detail about the OIML certification system. But before I start my presentation, I'd first like to show a short animated video which gives a very quick overview and introduction to the certification system. So I will just share that video with you now, and then I'll go into my presentation.
Virtually every country in the world has its own legal metrology system. From price computing scales, clinical thermometers, alcohol breath analyzers seen everywhere in our daily lives, to crane scales, ship tags found at ports, air samplers at environment monitoring stations. All these measuring instruments are subject to legal metrological control. The uniformity, accuracy, and reliability of the measurement results rely heavily on the practice of legal metrology, which is an essential prerequisite for fair trade, people's safety and well-being, and environmental sustainability, with economic activities dramatically boosted by globalization. Mutual trust in legal metrology has become an increasingly important theme among different countries and economies. Without internationally harmonized legal metrological requirements, measuring instruments in their cross-border trade often run up against a technical barrier of trade, or TBT. For instance, a measuring instrument product manufactured in country A has to demonstrate its compliance with the legal metrological requirements of country B before entering its market. Under normal circumstances, the manufacturer has to apply to the administrative department of country B for its type approval, which means it has to submit relevant documents to that department, send representative samples to laboratories designated by the department for test and type evaluation, and wait for the official approval for market entrance. Therefore, similar procedure repeats whenever the manufacturer wishes to sell an identical type of product in different countries. This causes escalating export cost and unnecessary waste of resources, burdening the international trade of measuring instruments. Then, how can we effectively lower or remove this technical barrier? The International Organization of Legal Metrology, OIML, has provided a solution. As an influential intergovernmental treaty organization in the aspect of legal metrology, OIML establishes international recommendations for measuring instruments, promotes intergovernmental communication and collaboration, introduces and manages an international certification system known as OIML-CS, and helps to build a concrete bridge of trust between a growing number of countries. Particularly, the OIML-CS addresses the issue of repeated certification and tests for market, allowing an OIML certificate issued in one place to be accepted in other places around the world. At present, there are 13 OIML issuing authorities approved to issue OIML certificates and associated OIML type evaluation reports. 39 measuring instrument categories are now included in the OIML-CS, along with the corresponding OIML recommendations. Each OIML issuing authority has its own scope. They can provide services to measuring instrument manufacturers all over the world. Take the case in China as an example. Measuring instrument manufacturer or its agency can apply to China's OIML issuing authority, National Institute of Metrology, China, NI, for OIML certification for a certain type of measuring instrument. A competent OIML test laboratory is assigned by NEED to carry out examination and tests according to the requirement of relevant OIML recommendation. Generally, these tests include performance tests, disturbance tests, endurance tests, and type examination. If these tests and examination approve the type to be in compliance with the corresponding OIML recommendation, NEED will issue an OIML type evaluation report and OIML certificate. This certificate will grant the instrument pass to the international market. One test, one certificate, accepted everywhere. This is OIML-CS.
Okay, hopefully you found that short video to be interesting and to give a quick overview and introduction to the certification system. I'll now give my presentation to go into more detail about the OIML as an organization and then the OIML certification system itself. And then that will be followed with Mark and Pedro giving more information from actual participants in the system and how they benefit from the OIML certification system. Okay, so first of all, it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to join you today as part of this webinar and to give you an introduction to the certification system and also how we work with the accreditation community to support the implementation and operation of the system. In terms of the OIML, we are an international standards setting body in the sense of the World Trade Organization's Technical Barriers to Trade Agreements, or the WTO-TBT. We're an intergovernmental treaty organization, and we were established in 1955. So this year is actually our 70th anniversary, so an important year for the organization. And we develop model regulations and related documents for use by the legal metrology authorities and industry around the world. In addition, the OIML provides a mutual recognition system which reduces trade barriers and costs in a global market. And that system is the OIML certification system, which is what we're here to talk about today. In terms of our membership, we have member states who have ratified the OIML Convention, and they play a full role in the work and operation of the OIML. So they are voting members of the organization. We also have corresponding members, and again, they can participate in the work of the OIML, but they are not actually able to vote in the various activities that we undertake. As you can see, we have very good representation across the globe, and certainly hot off the press. Venezuela has now just joined the OIML as a corresponding member. So we now have 67 corresponding members, and that gives us a total of 131 members. So it's wonderful to see increased membership and representation across the globe for the OIML. We operate what we call pillars of different activities within the OIML. The first pillar is the production and publication of technical standards, or OIML recommendations, and also various other publications and guidance documents. The second pillar is the operation of the OIML certification system, which is our mutual recognition system for measuring instruments that are used in legal applications such as trade, but also that cover safety, health, and environmental measurements. We also participate in various capacity building and outreach activities through what we call our countries and economies with emerging metrology systems, or SEAMS program. And we also cooperate with international organizations to advocate the importance of legal metrology as part of the quality infrastructure. And this is where we have an excellent relationship with the accreditation community, with ILAC and the IAF, and it's been really good that we can work with those organizations to support the implementation of the certification system, but also how we can advocate the importance of legal metrology as part of accredited labs, for example. So when we talk about the global quality infrastructure, hopefully you're very aware and familiar of the different elements of the quality infrastructure, as we see here with accreditation through ILAC and IAF, the standardization community with ISO, IEC, and the ITU. We then have metrology here with ourselves as the OIML, responsible for legal metrology. And then we have a sister organization that's based in Paris, the BIPM, which is responsible for scientific metrology. And we have a lot of interaction with the partners within the quality infrastructure around the world. And that's something obviously that we're looking to develop and participate in more going forwards. So that was a very quick overview of the OIML and the different areas that we work on as part of our day-to-day activities. I'd now like to go into more detail about the certification system. And we have a framework document, OIML B18, which gives all of the information regarding the certification system and how it operates. And this particular publication, like all of the other publications, is freely downloadable from the OIML website. So when we talk about the certification system and the principles of its operation, the OIML certification system is a system for issuing, registering, and using OIML certificates and their associated type evaluation reports for measuring instruments based on the requirements that are specified in the OIML recommendations or standards. It is a single certification system which has two schemes, Scheme A and Scheme B, and I'll explain in a bit more detail the differences between the two schemes. The certification system is classified as a Scheme 1A in terms of ISO IEC 17067, which means that it only relates to type approval. There is no verification or inspection or surveillance activities associated with the certification system at the moment. The CS aims to facilitate, accelerate, and harmonise the work of national and regional bodies that are responsible for type evaluation and the type approval of measuring instruments that are subject to legal metrological control. The objectives of the certification system are to promote global harmonization and the uniform interpretation and implementation of legal metrological requirements for measuring instruments. The next objective is to avoid the unnecessary retesting when obtaining national type evaluations, while achieving and maintaining confidence in the results in support of facilitating the global trade of measuring instruments. And the third objective is to establish the rules and procedures for fostering mutual confidence in the results of those type evaluations. In the video that I showed, it mentioned that there are 39 categories. The video is now slightly out of date. We now have 41 categories or OIML recommendations that are in the certification system. 39 of those recommendations are currently in Scheme A, and 2 are in Scheme B, and they will ultimately transition to Scheme A over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. When we talk about OIML recommendations, they are intended as model regulations. The member states and the corresponding members of the OIML are morally obliged to implement them. So if a member state wishes to regulate a particular type of measuring instrument, then they can implement the requirements that are specified in the OIML recommendations. And when we talk about the recommendations, they're split into 4 separate parts. Part 1 has the metrological and technical requirements. Part 2 has all of the relevant test procedures. and then parts 3 and 4 are the test report and the type evaluation report formats. And these are important when there is the acceptance of test results and the type evaluation report. They need to be in a standard and recognizable format. So when member countries are accepting certificates and reports, they are in an easily recognizable and common format. When we talk about the different participants in the system, we have the regulators, and these are what we call the utilizers and associates. So these are the countries and economies who will accept and utilize the OIML certificates as the basis for granting approval in their own country or in the region. We have the OIML issuing authorities, and these relate to the testing labs and certification bodies. And then we have the users of the system, who are the manufacturers. So they are the manufacturers of the measuring instruments who wish to sell their products in a number of countries around the world, and they submit their product for testing and evaluation. They obtain their OIML certificate and the associated reports from the issuing authorities, and then they can take those to the utilizers and associates and gain approval. At the moment, we have 14 issuing authorities and 28 test laboratories that are approved to operate under the OIML-CS. So you can see the countries with an issuing authority are shown in the blue color, and we then have 37 utilizers and associates who participate in the system, and they are shown in the orangey peach color. So you can see that we have quite good representation in certain parts of the world. However, in the Americas, participation actually is quite limited, and it's good that we have Pedro here from Colombia, who can give you information about how they make use of the OIML certification system and the benefits that they receive, and hopefully we can generate more interest in the region to participate in the system. So when we talk about the issuing authorities, they are a certification body from an OIML member state, and that's quite important. The countries that can issue certificates have to be OIML member states, so they are fully signed up to the convention and are full members of the organization, and they can issue the certificates and the associated type evaluation reports in accordance with either Scheme A or Scheme B. These issuing authorities are then supported by test laboratories, and they conduct the testing in accordance with the OIML recommendation. And test labs, they can either be an internal test laboratory of the issuing authority itself, or they could be a completely independent third-party test laboratory, or they could even be a manufacturer test lab. And an issuing authority can have one or more test laboratories that do the testing for them, and they can have any combination of internal, third-party, or manufacturer test lab to support them in their activities. You can see here the current list of issuing authorities. So these are the different countries, the different certification bodies, and then here you can see the different recommendations which are in their scopes, and you can see that there are some recommendations that are extremely popular, like R76 for non-automatic weighing instruments, and then you can see some issuing authorities that have a very wide scope, for example, NMI in the Netherlands, and that's why we have Mark Schmidt here to talk to you today as one of the most active participants in the certification system. As mentioned, the utilizers are from member states, and again, they are organizations that will accept the OIML certificates and or the type evaluation reports as the basis for granting approval in their country or region. Associates perform the exact same function, but an associate is from an OIML corresponding member. We also have a term, what we call the secret utilizer. And these are countries and economies who we know accept and utilize the OIML certificates and reports, but do not formally participate in the system. And we are actively working to identify who these countries and economies are, and also then to encourage them to formally participate in the certification system, because that will then show to manufacturers that actually if they gain OIML approval, there is actually a much wider range of countries and economies that will make use of the OIML certificate and accept the products then into their markets. So that's an ongoing challenge that we have. You can't really see the text here. This is the list of all the utilizers and associates down the left. Again, we have the different recommendations across the top, and then you can see the scopes of some of or all of the utilizers and associates. And again, we have some countries who will accept a wide range of OIML certificates, and then we have other countries where they might only accept maybe one or two different recommendations depending upon the legislation and regulations in their particular economy. So when we talk about Scheme A and Scheme B, I'll now explain the difference between the two schemes. So the requirements for the participation of issuing authorities and their test laboratories in Scheme A and Scheme B are the same, but the method of demonstrating compliance is actually different. So the issuing authorities are required to demonstrate compliance with ISO IEC 17065, and the test laboratories are required to demonstrate compliance with 17025. For the issuing authorities, they could also make use of 17020 for inspection bodies. That was introduced a few years ago to provide an alternative pathway, but at the recent management committee meeting that we had earlier this year, a decision was taken to remove the 17020 pathway. It didn't bring the benefits that we anticipated. The issuing authorities weren't making use of it, and to now simplify the system, we are reverting back to issuing authorities only being able to use 17065. So for participation in Scheme B, it is sufficient to demonstrate compliance on the basis of self-declaration with additional supporting evidence. And when new recommendations come into the system, they start in Scheme B. The issuing authorities and test labs can use a self-declaration to say that they are able to issue certificates and reports for that measuring instrument category under Scheme B. And that enables new entrance into the system, and it also, when we have new recommendations, it enables us to very quickly get issuing authorities and test labs to participate. Then after a period of time, the category of instrument will transition to Scheme A, and here compliance is demonstrated by a peer evaluation on the basis of accreditation or a peer assessment. Where accreditation is used, the assessment team shall include legal metrology experts approved by the OIML, and where peer assessment teams are used, or where peer assessment is used, the team shall comprise a management system expert or team leader and legal metrology experts approved by ourselves. So we have these two separate pathways where accreditation or peer assessment can be used. And the aim is to have all of the recommendations transition into Scheme A. So that means that there is a third-party assessment of the competence of the issuing authority in the test lab, which then increases the confidence in the certificates and the reports that are issued. So where accreditation is chosen, the accreditation body shall be a member of, for example, the IAAC-MLA for the issuing authority, or for the accreditation of the issuing authority, and the IAAC-MRA for the accreditation of the test laboratory. We have joint assessment procedures with both ILAC and IAF, which support accreditation assessments under the certification system. And they give guidelines for the use of accreditation, the use of OIML experts in the accreditation assessment teams, and also the scope of accreditation that the issuing authorities and the test labs need to have specified. Obviously, with the formation of the new organisation in 2026, we will be updating the joint assessment procedure so that it will then be a single procedure with the new single accreditation organisation. We have two OIML documents, D30 and D32, and they provide guidance and interpretation on the application of 17025 and 17065 in the field of legal metrology. So D30 applies to the testing labs and D32 applies to product certification or type approval. So where a test lab is using 17025 accreditation, OIML D30 can be used by the test lab to identify the key requirements and the interpretation of those requirements that are specified in 17025 as part of their accreditation. In terms of how the system operates, we have the test reports that are issued by the test laboratories. There could be a single test report issued by a single test lab, or there could be multiple test reports either issued by the same test lab or by a combination of different test labs. So for example, the performance testing, so the environmental testing, might be done by one particular test lab. We might then have EMC testing performed by another test lab, and then there could be some results from a manufacturer test lab. They are all brought together and referenced in the type evaluation report, and this is where an assessment is made as to whether the measuring instrument fully complies with the requirements in the relevant OIML recommendation, and if that is found to be the case, the type evaluation report is issued, and then the OIML certificate is issued on the basis of the type evaluation report with the evidence that the instrument complies with the requirements in the recommendation. And that certificate and those associated reports are then made use of by the manufacturer to obtain approval elsewhere. In terms of the number of certificates that have been issued, the OIML certification system came into operation in 2018, and we can see since it came into operation that we have had a steady increase in the number of certificates. 2021 was a bit of a bumpy year for specific reasons, but if you look at the trend of the certificates being issued, we can see a year-on-year increase, and so the system is gaining in popularity and is being made use of more and more by manufacturers and regulators. In terms of the different certificates that are issued, the most common recommendation is what we call R76, and this relates to non-automatic weighing instruments. We then have R60, which applies to load cells, which are used in weighing instruments. And then we have a number of other recommendations where we are seeing a decent number of certificates being issued. So for example, R117 is for fuel dispensers, and then some of the other recommendations relate to utility meters for gas, water, and electricity. So when we talk about OIML certificates, as shown in the animation video at the beginning, the OIML certificates are effectively a passport for measuring instruments to enter the international market. The aim is to have the instrument tested once, to have one certificate issued, and then for that certificate to be used to provide access to the global market. We can see on the left we have the issuing authorities, and then on the right hand side we have the utilizers and associates. So the aim is to have it tested once and accepted everywhere. We have a management committee which is responsible for the operation of the certification system, and Mr. Mark Schmidt is actually the chairperson of the management committee. We last met in March of this year in Prague in the Czech Republic, and it was a very productive meeting. It was good to have Rob present at the meeting, and also to have Pedro there as well. In terms of some of the key topics that we discussed, as mentioned, we are removing the 17020 pathway from the system. As I mentioned at the beginning, the certification system is classified as a Scheme 1A, so it only at the moment covers type approval, but we are exploring at the moment the possibility of including conformity to type in the certification system. So that will be verification, inspection, and surveillance activities. We also had a discussion about the IAF endorsement of the certification system. So this is where 17065 accreditation is used for the issuing authorities, and we are working very closely with the IAF at the moment for the certification system scheme to be endorsed and recognised as part of the MLA. In terms of future developments of the system, as mentioned, we're looking at the IF endorsements and the inclusion of conformity to type. We are looking to expand the scope of the certification system by including new recommendations, for example, recommendations on electric vehicle supply equipment, or EVSE, and also a recommendation that we have on speed meters for detecting the speed of vehicles. When they are introduced, they will start in Scheme B, so self-declaration can be used, and then after a period of time they will transition to Scheme A, where accreditation or peer assessments will be required. We're also looking at modular approvals in the certification system, and this is where a measuring instrument may comprise different modules that could be tested and certified separately, and how they can be brought together to form a complete system that is approved under the certification system. We're also looking at the assessment requirements that we have for issuing authorities and test laboratories, and how we make use of accreditation and peer assessments and those two options, and how we can ensure that we have consistency in terms of the evaluations and the assessments of the issuing authorities and the test labs. In terms of the benefits of the certification system, there are benefits for the different stakeholders, the different participants in the system. So consumers can rely on certified measuring instruments which fulfill internationally agreed requirements, and those requirements are the ones that are specified in the OIML recommendations. Manufacturers can get testing services for their measuring instruments from competent and recognised issuing authorities and test laboratories, and national authorities in the different countries can rely on internationally accepted certificates without duplicate testing, and they can use those certificates to issue their national or regional type approvals. And to summarise, the certification system strengthens trust in measuring instruments and measurement results, enables the certification of measuring instruments, avoiding duplicate testing and acceptance on an international level. It facilitates the international trade of measuring instruments, and it makes the work of legal metrology authorities more efficient. All of this information can be found on our website. If you go onto our homepage, across the ribbon at the top, we have an OIML-CS link, but also then we have another link further down on the homepage, and that will then take you to the certification system homepage, where we then have a wealth of information regarding the system and how it operates, all of the different documents which are used to support the operation, and various guidance as well. So I hope you found this presentation and the earlier video to be interesting and informative. And if we take questions now, I'm happy to take questions, or if the plan is to take questions at the end, obviously I'm happy to take questions then. So thank you for your attention.
Muchísimas gracias a Paul por esa importante
Thank you
información
very
acerca de la
much, Paul, for this
certificación
important
en este
information
campo
about
de metrología
certification
legal.
in
Como ya
the field of legal
mencionó
metrology.
en varias
And as was
ocasiones, también está
already
con
mentioned on
nosotros
several
Pedro
occasions,
Pérez,
we have
que
here
él nos
with us Pedro
acompañará
Perez.
en la
He
discusión
will
sobre el
be
uso
with
de
us for a
esta
discussion on the use
certificación en
of this
América.
certification in
Es un
America.
destacado profesional con
He
formación
is a
en ingeniería
professional
agrícola y
who is an
industrial,
agricultural and
experto en
industrial
metrología
engineer,
legal,
an expert in legal
financiero y
metrology,
regulación legal.
market
Ha
surveillance,
liderado
and
proyectos de
technical
innovación en
regulation.
control
He's led
metrológico y
innovation,
participado activamente
metrological
en la
control
evaluación de la
projects,
conformidad de
and also
normativas.
in conformity
Además, cuenta con
assessment.
experiencia
He
como
also has
docente.
experience
Adelante,
as
Pedro.
a professor. Please go ahead, Pedro.
Gracias, Verónica. Buenos
Thank
días
you,
para
Veronica.
todos.
Good morning,
Gracias
everyone.
a IAAC
I'd
por
like
este
to
espacio.
thank the
Me
IAC for this
parece maravilloso.
opportunity because I think it's a
Ya voy
marvelous
a
opportunity.
presentar mi presentación.
I'm going to share my presentation right now.
Espero que ya la estén
I
viendo.
hope you can see it.
Yeah.
Ok,
Sí.
perfecto.
Yes, we can. Good.
Bien, entonces,
So,
una vez más, mi nombre es Pedro Pérez.
again, my name is Pedro
Yo
Perez.
soy asesor de
I
la
am an
Administración de la
advisor
Control y
for
Verificación de
control and
Reglamentos en
verification
Metrología
of
Legal
technical
de la
regulations in
Superintendencia
legal
de Comercio en
metrology of
Colombia.
the
La Superintendencia de
Superintendents of
Industria y
Industry and
Comercio
Trade in
es una entidad
Colombia.
colombiana
This is a
encargada
Colombian
de
entity that
regular en materia de
works to
metrología legal
regulate
y
legal
realizar
metrology
la vigilancia
and
de
carry
esta
out
regulación en materia de
surveillance of
metrología
these
legal.
regulations related to legal
Adicionalmente,
metrology.
como
Furthermore, I
representante
participate
ante el Comité
as a
Internacional de
representative
Metrología
in the
Legal y en
International
función de
Legal
ello,
Metrology Committee.
he podido acceder
And
a
through
los
this, I've been
entes,
able
o
to have
Colombia ha podido
access,
acceder a los
or
diferentes grupos
Colombia
de
has been able to
trabajo
have access
al
to
interior de
the
la
different
Organización
working
Internacional.
groups
Uno
within
de
the
ellos
international organization. One
es
of
el
them is
OIML-CS.
the
Y dentro del OIML-CS
OIML-CS,
tenemos
and within
diferentes
this
grupos
working
de
group, or within this
trabajo de
organization, we have a
promoción y
working group
divulgación
to
de la
promote and raise
información de
awareness
OIML-CS.
on
En este marco,
OIML-CS.
quisiera
In
dar
this
una
framework,
breve
I would
introducción
like to make a brief introduction
cuáles son los participantes de este grupo, qué
about
es lo que se
the
está haciendo
participants
desde
in the
este
group,
grupo,
what we're doing
cuáles son los
in this
proyectos que
group, what
tenemos,
the projects
para
are that we have,
luego pasar a
so that
ver
after
cómo
that,
estamos interactuando con las
we can
diferentes
see how we're
regiones del mundo,
interacting with the different regions in the
particularmente
world,
con
specifically
la región SIM, que es
with
la región de
the
las
SIM, the
Américas,
SIM
y
region in the
finalmente
Americas. And
contarles un poco
finally,
sobre
I'd like
nuestra
to tell you a little bit about
de Colombia,
our experience
porque
in
hemos estado
Colombia.
como país muy activo en términos
Because
de
we've
la
tried to be a
interacción,
very
no
active
solo con la
country,
OIML,
not
sino
just with
con
the
distintas
OIML, but also
instituciones
with the
de la
certification system
organización.
of the
Entonces,
organization. So
hablemos un
then
poco de los
let's speak
participantes del
about the
grupo de promoción y
participants of
sensibilización
the working
del
group for
sistema de
promotion and
certificación.
awareness of
En este
the
momento
certification
contamos con
system.
ocho
So we have
participantes,
8 participants
Colombia,
right
Australia,
now.
Alemania,
Colombia,
Países
Australia,
Bajos, Reino
Germany,
Unido, China,
Netherlands,
India y
United
Zambia.
Kingdom, China, India, and Zambia.
Y la idea es
And
que
the
pues estemos
idea
trabajando en
is
diferentes
that,
proyectos
well, we're working on
en
different
donde
projects
podamos
where
acceder a
we
este tipo de
can access
actividades y
this
difundir este
type
sistema
of
que, como ya lo
activity
mencioné un
and
poco,
disseminate the system
busca facilitarle
in order to facilitate
el trabajo
the
y
work
la forma de
and
interactuar
the form
comercialmente
of
a los
interacting
fabricantes de instrumentos de medición y a
with
los
the
verificadores para que los
manufacturers of
usos
the
y los
instruments and for the
no
countries that receive these
confiables
instruments to make sure that these
con
instruments are
un set de
reliable
demostración de la conformidad
with
que
and that they
sean
with
válidos
elements related
alrededor de
to
todo el mundo.
conformity
Dentro de las
demonstration.
tareas en
Among
las
the
que estamos
tasks
trabajando al interior
that
del grupo de
we
promoción y
work on within
sensibilización,
this
pues
working
ya lo
group,
mencionó Paul,
well, I already mentioned, or
tenemos
Paul
un
already
contacto
mentioned that
directo
we have
con el
direct
grupo de
contact
SIM,
with the
que son
SIM
estas
group.
economías que tienen
These are the
sistemas de
economies
metrología
that have
en
metrology
desarrollo.
systems that are
Buscamos
being
que hay
developed.
mucho material,
There's a
por
lot of
ejemplo, el
material.
video que
For
recientemente
example,
nos
the
mostró Paul,
video that Paul just showed us, that
usualmente se encuentra en idioma inglés. La
usually
idea es que
in
podamos
English. The
llevar
idea
este
is
material
to be
a
able
diferentes
to
idiomas.
translate these
Por supuesto, el
materials into
español es
different
un idioma muy
languages. And of
importante
course,
para
Spanish
la
is a very
organización,
important language for the
pero
organization.
recientemente,
But
por ejemplo, en
recently,
la reunión que
for
tuvimos en
example,
Praga
in the
en el
meeting
mes de
in
marzo de
Prague
este año,
in March of this year,
identificábamos
we identified that there were needs to translate into other languages that aren't so common, and we saw the need specifically to translate a lot of our materials, a lot of the materials of the certification system into different languages. So the idea is to have materials, study material, dissemination materials about the scope of the certification system, and to keep these materials updated on the web page of the certification system in general. Furthermore, I preside over a roundtable on regional legal metrology organizations, and there we are constantly disseminating information about the OIML certification system with the participation of other countries, and for Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Asia, AFRIMEX for Africa, the Legal Metrology Forum for Asia Pacific, and also the Gulf countries metrology system, and the SIM, the Metrology Information System. And focusing now on the SIM, recently we carried out a survey of the certification system within the region, and we had responses from 7 countries: Guyana, Colombia, Trinidad and Tobago, Brazil, United States, Argentina, and Costa Rica. And also, I'd like to take advantage to indicate that Venezuela has just actively joined this legal metrology working group of the Inter-American Metrology System. And so we will be carrying out a new survey to see what information will be provided by Venezuela. But in the countries that we have had access to, we've been able to see that 71% of these, in these countries, the OIML documents or the certificates issued within the framework of the OIML certification for demonstrating conformity, these contrast somewhat with the map that Paul showed us a few minutes ago, because we can see that there are several countries that accept documents or certificates within the certification system, but they haven't signed this agreement that Paul was talking about. So this is work that needs to be done in the region so that this activity can become formalized. And of course, with a commitment to the 29 remaining percent here, for them to be able to join and also enjoy the benefits of being a user of the OIML certification system. And the main measurement instrument for which conformity assessment documents in this framework of certification are accepted are weighing instruments, and also we have fuel supply or gas meters, and additionally, as I was saying, my experience in Colombia, or based on my experience in Colombia, and I'd like to give you some information also that is tangible information in Colombia and might be a reflection on the status in the region. In Colombia, we didn't, before Colombia actually joined the OIML in 2012, we didn't have any certified manufacturers with OIML-CS or
colombiano
certified in
bajo el
Colombia
sistema
under this
OIML-CS. A la fecha de
OIML-CS
hoy
scheme.
tenemos
But
6
now we
diferentes
have 6
fabricantes
different
identificados en
manufacturers
Colombia. Solo
identified
uno
in
de
Colombia,
ellos
and only one of those
contaba con
had an OIML
una certificación en el
certificate
marco de la OIML antes de que se emitiera la regulación
before
colombiana.
the
Como les decía,
Colombian regulation
Colombia
was issued.
firmó
As I
el
was saying,
acuerdo
Colombia
OIML en el
signed the
2012
OIML
y
agreement in
para
2012,
2016 se emite la
and up
primera
to
regulación
2016, the
para
first regulations,
instrumentos de
or in
medición
2016, the first
unidad
regulations were
de
issued
balanzas,
related
instrumentos
to
de precision de funcionamiento
scales,
automático y
automatic
surtidores de combustible.
scales, and
Posterior a la
also
emisión de la
fuel
regulación
suppliers.
colombiana,
So
5 fabricantes más
5 more
consiguieron ya
manufacturers
certificar sus
were
dispositivos de
able
medición bajo el
to
esquema o
certify
bajo el
their
sistema de
measurement
certificación
instruments
de la OIML.
using the OIML
Esto hace que
system.
los fabricantes colombianos
And this
ahora
meant
puedan acceder
that
a un mercado
now
que, como lo
Colombian
mencionaba Paul,
manufacturers
es de
have
más de
more
60
access to the
países
market,
miembros y de
consisting of
más
over
de
60 member countries
60 miembros
and
correspondientes a
over
este punto
60
países interesados.
corresponding members, over
Em,
120
y
countries
pues
in
bueno, esto ha
total.
facilitado que
This
el
has
comercio
made
de
it
instrumentos
easier
de
for this trade
medición colombianos,
in
particularmente
measurement
en
instruments in
balanzas,
Colombia,
pueda
um,
darse hacia fuera del país.
can
Un poco de lo que
extend to
nosotros
outside of
tenemos
the
hacia
country.
Colombia. En
Regarding
este momento
other
tenemos
instruments
casi
registered, we have
450,
almost
450 modelos diferentes de
450 different
instrumentos de precision de
models
funcionamiento automático registrados
of
en el Sistema de
automatic
Información de Seguridad
measuring
Social
instruments
de Colombia,
registered
es decir, hay
in Colombia.
450
So
modelos
that
que han
means
demostrado la conformidad
448
con
models that
certificados
demonstrate
OIML
conformity and
para y
under the
210
OIML
modelos para
certification,
surtidores de
and
combustible.
210 liquid fuel dispensers.
Respecto de
Regarding
los, las importaciones año a año, pues
imports,
bueno, esta información está
annual imports, well,
actualizada
this
31 de enero
information is up to
de
date
2025.
from the 30
Digamos,
up
por
to the
ahora
31st of January
en este
2025.
estado que estamos
So
tomando, pues 2025 todavía no es
So
representativo de
really,
aquella información que
2025 isn't
nosotros tenemos
representative because the information
depurada
is only up until
hasta
the end of
enero,
January.
pero por
But,
ejemplo,
for
en
example,
importaciones de balanzas, en
in
los últimos años
imports
tenemos
of
de
scales,
340
we've
importaciones de
had
balanzas, teniendo en
340
consideración que cada
imports,
una de estas
keeping in mind that
en cada una de estas se
in each of
importan
these,
varios instrumentos de medición.
there are several measurement
Muchos de
instruments that
estos
are imported. This
mismos.
includes several. It could be,
Y
well, it could
todos
be actually
ellos
thousands
demuestran la
in each
conformidad
import.
con
And these all
la
demonstrate
certificación
conformity
de
with
la
the
OIML.
certification system of the OIML.
Sencillamente para mencionarlo,
And
los
also
principales
important to mention
países que
the
envían
main
instrumentos de medición
countries that send
con
these measurement
demostración de la
instruments
conformidad OIML-CS
demonstrating conformity
a Colombia
under
son las empresas de
OIML-CS.
balanzas
For
chinas,
Colombia, it's
al igual que en el caso de surtidores de
also the case of
combustible y
China, and also with the
para
fuel dispensers. You can see the
alcoholímetros
data here,
tenemos importaciones
and
desde
breath
Alemania.
analyzers as well,
Muchísimas
Germany.
gracias a todos
Thank you
ustedes.
very much to all of
Si
you.
hay alguna pregunta,
If there are
estoy
any
atento a
questions,
responderla o
I
si
will be
quieren
very
dejar
happy to
preguntas
answer
para el
them.
final.
Or we can leave them till the end.
Muchísimas gracias. La intervención de Pedro Pérez acerca del uso de esta
Thank you very much,
certificación. Como
Pedro Perez, about the use of
ya
certification
mencionaba
in
al
America.
inicio,
As
está
we
activo
mentioned at the beginning,
el menú de preguntas y respuestas
the
para
question
que los
and
participantes
answer
puedan
column
dirigir a
is
través de
available
estos
for any
espacios
comments or
inquietudes,
questions,
consultas o preguntas que
concerns,
después las gestionamos internamente con
suggestions, and we can manage those
panelistas.
internally later with the
Continuamos y
panelists,
esta
and we'll
vez vamos a
answer them
conocer
later.
el
We're going to
uso de
continue
la
now, and we're going to talk
certificación
about the use of
OIML
the
en
OIML
Europa. Y para
certification in
esto
Europe.
tenemos con
And
nosotros a
we have
Mark
with us
Schmidt,
today Mark Schmidt,
quien es director
who
de
is
técnica,
the
calidad y
Director of
riesgo
Quality
en
and Risk, Technical Quality and Risk
MEI-13, que es de
in
Países Bajos, y que también es
MEAC-13, which
socio
is
del
from the
sistema
Netherlands, and a user of
OIML,
the
presidente
OIML
también del
system.
comité de
He's also
gestión
president of the management
de esta
committee of this
organización,
organization,
desde donde impulsa el
where
seguimiento
he has
internacional de la marca
promoted
central.
legal metrology internationally, strengthening global frameworks for the certification of instruments. I'd like to welcome you, Mark, and we pass you the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these nice words and this nice introduction. That saves me the first slide. Let me also share my screen. Share. There we go. That looks brilliant. As mentioned, I'm the TQR director within the NMI group. Besides that, I'm also the head of the certification board within NMI Certain, responsible for issuing all the certificates that we do. And I want to share some, where are we? There we are. Some of the information of NMI, give a little bit of a background of how the OIML certification system is used in Europe and some experiences that we've had. I was looking back and I saw that NMI has been issuing OIML certificates for over 30 years. As Paul mentioned, the OIML-CS was implemented as of 2017, but in the last 30 years, we have issued over 3,500 certificates in a large variety of measuring instruments. And we are also, by that extent, a heavily participant in the writing and revising of almost all OIML recommendations. That comes also from the philosophy that we have that if you really believe in the system, you need to participate in the system, you need to help the system. So I'm also very glad that I was asked to participate in this webinar to promote the system also in that extent. And as you've seen, I've taken quite a number of slides as a basis from Paul, because I believe in everything that he mentioned also about the OIML system. If you look in Europe, we have the new legislative framework, which is combined in the so-called Blue Guide. And the philosophy around the Blue Guide in Europe is basically the same as OIML, which is to promote a uniform application of all the legal metrology rules across the European Union and to have one single market ensuring a high level of protection for consumer and all other stakeholders. This is basically the same as we have actually within the OIML certification system, where I think that there's a very good connection between the two in general. If I share a little bit more around how we have the legislative framework within Europe, we have the Measurement Instrument Directive and we have the Non-Automatic Weighing Instruments Directive, as mentioned as the references on top. In those directives, we have essential requirements, we have conformity assessment procedures, and we have instrument-specific annexes. And those instrument-specific annexes, but also the essential requirements, can then be covered by harmonized standards, normative documents, or harmonized interpretations. And this is really where the OIML certification system comes in place as a normative document, because it means in general that when you comply with the OIML certification system, this could already give presumption of conformity to one of the instrument-specific annexes of the Measurement Instrument Directive. Translating that could mean that if you have an OIML certificate for R76, which is a non-automatic weighing scale, as we've seen earlier, that could easily be transferred into a European certificate, which then gives you access to the European markets. If you look at the MID and the Non-Automatic Weighing Instruments Directive, there are a total of 11 measurement instruments covered by those two directives. Even if instruments are not covered by those directives, there's still an option to have national legislation, which you see on the right, where there can be national legislation. For instance, in the Netherlands, we have that for compressed gaseous fuel, hydrogen dispensers, which is also, again, largely based on the OIML R139 for compressed gaseous fuel. So also there, having a certificate for an OIML R139 recommendation means that you have presumption of conformity, and you can easily transfer that certificate to a national certificate in the Netherlands, and to place your instruments on the market. Then to go a little bit more into depth, there's a high overlap between the two systems. So the picture that I'm showing here below is a typical picture, which is actually coming from the OIML R117 for liquids other than water. And in that picture, you have various parts that you can certify. So in following the OIML R117, you can certify, for instance, a meter or a calculator or a gas elimination device, and you can get a European certificate for that, which you can see on the right-hand side as being an evaluation certificate. So this is an example where you can have a certificate for a part based on a OIML certificate and the underlying OIML type evaluation reports and test reports, which is then, based on that, an evaluation certificate for Europe is issued. Then, as we all know, that a lot of systems are based on components. So you can have that in weighing instruments, you can have that in fuel dispensers, and all those components are then combined into EU type examination certificates. Those EU type examination certificates are the certificates that we use for MID, the Measurement Instrument Directive, and the NAVI Directive. And again, you can have an OIML certificate for a fuel dispenser or for a NAVI, which then can be the basis for an EU type examination certificate. I think the biggest benefit from the OIML that we see from NMI is the acceptance of the certificates. A very big advantage is that all the certificates are issued on the OIML website. You can go to the OIML website as shown by Mr. Paul Dixon, and there you can look for a certain certificate, you can look for the manufacturer, you can look for the type, and that really helps. As mentioned, it is a basis for a national type approval. So you can use an OIML certificate with all the information in there, and actually do a decent copy-paste into a national type approval certificate. What we also see that besides using OIML certificates, a lot of the type evaluation reports that we issue are actually also used to issue national type approval certificates. So even instruments where there is not an OIML certificate, but there is a test report or other kind of report, you can still use that to issue or to request a national type approval in whatever country you have. Also on the OIML website, you have all the national requirements that are mentioned. You can see that from the utilizer side, but especially those secret utilizers help also here. That there are much more economies across the world that accept type evaluation reports and test reports as a basis for national type approval. They might not accept the report as a whole, but they might say that instead of testing 100 different tests again, that they only test 10 tests or a different number of tests. So it will save you in the number of tests that need to be repeated. What we also see as an improvement is the knowledge, and therefore I'm also very glad with this webinar around the promotion of how to use OIML certificates. We quite often see that OIML certificates are requested for instruments that are not part of the system, or they ask it just to check a box, but they don't know exactly what to do with those OIML certificates. And I think especially the video as shown in the beginning of the webinar, but also these kind of webinars really help in the knowledge of how to use the system. Then a little bit about us from an issuing authority side. We've already seen this nice list with the 14 issuing authorities, and we've seen the participants in the OIML certification system. But there are actually much more parties involved, because besides the regulators, the manufacturers, and the test and certification bodies, there's of course the accreditation bodies with all the technical experts. There's the legislator or the ministries. There's market surveillance authorities. There's OIML regulations and OIML expertise, like within the management committee and the review committee, or other committees that we have. So there are a lot of parties involved within the certification system that you need to be aware of. In a certain way, we want to have the system easily accessible, but on the other side, you do need to know with all the actors that you have. We regularly get questions from market surveillance authorities within Europe, but also outside Europe, to ask for certain certificates that we have issued, if they are still valid, if they can use them. So there's a large variety of participants working in the system that you need to know your way around. As mentioned also, you need to have preferably accreditation. So we've had an accreditation since the early 90s, and that's quite something. It's really a proof of competence. And although sometimes it might look stringent to get a accreditation, it is a proof of competence. We actually call it within NMI our license to operate, because without an accreditation or a proof of confidence, you cannot do anything. So this is really something that from an issuing authority and a test lab, you need to have high awareness of your license to operate and your competence. So although it might seem strict and it might seem difficult to achieve, this is also one of the bases on which certificates can be accepted throughout the world, throughout the Americas. And as mentioned, it is really based on the accreditation and legal metrology experts. Because although metrology is used everywhere around the globe, we do see that especially people like Pedro and other experts within the system really benefit from participating during audits from accreditation bodies or from peer assessment. People that know the system are best to ask you questions and to help you improve. So although maybe Pedro asks us difficult questions, it does help us to improve our own system and our own policies to increase that acceptance again throughout the world. And then I have two slides that are actually exactly the same as Paul Dixon shared, because it's really that we see that if you can do one-time testing, achieve that certificate, you will get global access by lowering the threshold but also making it easy accessible. We receive questions from out Australia, Canada, Brazil, Japan, really everywhere around the globe. We get questions around the testing and the certification that we have performed as issuing authority, in the end to help get a manufacturer regional access to the market to let them achieve a national certificate for type approval. So it's really something that we try to promote, the one-time testing, to have one certificate published on the OIML website, and in the end have global access. So we really see that, especially from a manufacturer side, it helps to use the OIML system, because even if it is not accepted all around the globe, it does help you to get easier testing and easier access without too much duplication into national and regional type approval. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm glad to hand it over to Veronica again.
Muchísimas gracias. Sí,
Thank you
muchísimas
very
gracias,
much.
Omar,
Yes,
por
thank you
toda
very
esa
much, Mark,
información
for
que nos
all
ha
this
compartido.
information that you've shared with
Y
us.
ahora, a
And
continuación,
now we
damos
will
paso nuevamente
hear once
a Robert
again
Naki,
from Robert
quien
Naki,
nos va a comentar
who will
sobre la relación
share
de
more about
enlace
the
entre ALAC y
relationship of
IAF.
liaison between ILAC and
Así que, por
IF.
favor,
So
le cedo
please,
la
Rob,
palabra
you have the floor.
nuevamente. Adelante.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. One moment. Okay, well, thank you very much. Everybody has been wonderful so far, and I think this has been great information. So I'm just going to quickly talk a little bit about ILAC and how it fits into the whole OIML-CS structure. So I serve as the liaison to OIML for ILAC, in addition to also being the MLA vice chair for IAAC. So IAAC has a direct link to activities at OIML and ILAC through some of these liaison activities. Just real quickly, so ILAC is the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. Everyone may be familiar with that, but what that is a group, an association of accreditation bodies that have come together to have a process in place to ensure the competency of all the accreditation bodies that are signatories, and then to recognize those accreditations as equivalent to the accreditations granted in their own economy. With the ILAC MRA focuses on testing and calibration, inspection, proficiency testing, reference material producers are all part of the agreement. IAF is the International Accreditation Forum, which is recognized for ISO 17065 for product certification. And ILAC and IAF work very closely together, so much so, in fact, that ILAC and IAF are going to be merging into one organization starting in January 1st, 2026. Won't go into great detail about that in this particular webinar, but I do want to mention that they will join together to merge as one organization, being Global Accreditation Cooperation Incorporated, targeting January 1st, 2026. We don't expect any impact to any of the recognition with OIML or liaison activities. So just wanted to note that more information will come of that in the future from ILAC, IF, and the new organization. But currently you could see it is a large recognition arrangement covering the globes, various stakeholders, organizations like OIML that we have liaison activities with. So specifically focusing on OIML, there's an MOU that was signed or re-signed, I should say, in February of 2024 between IAF, ILAC, and OIML. really what that talks about is this cooperation and how OIML can rely on ILAC and IAF and the accreditations that are being provided to support the OIML scheme through the accreditation of product certification, testing, laboratories. And prior to the transition that Paul mentioned earlier about 17020 inspection, that scheme will be going away and relying on 17065 certification. But that was also part of this arrangement. Paul and I work closely to help develop a work program for how ILAC and OIML can work together to help things like training, to help provide technical experts for these assessments and evaluations, as well as quality system experts from ILAC to help support OIML in these evaluations activities as well. So trying to make the process go as smoothly, be as effective and efficient as possible through these collaborations. And as Paul mentioned, working towards the IAF endorsement of this OIML-CS scheme for product certification. Just a couple updates about the arrangement committee. We are working within ILAC to continually improve the collaboration. There are some issues that we're working on to help with the cross-frontier policy and just ensure that the accreditations are being recognized equivalently across all the globe and the different partners. Specifically working in the accreditation committee, Paul we've been lucky enough to have Paul attend those activities last year, and I was able to participate, as Paul mentioned, in Prague earlier this year, to just really further ensure this collaboration across the evaluations and the assessment. We have a new working group metrology convener in Julia Suriani, who is with the International Accreditation Services here in the US. We did have an April meeting, and we're going to be meeting together in Bangkok again in Thailand for October for our General Assembly. And Paul and I will be working on ensuring that these training activities and we're meeting our work plan as we go. But the main thing I wanted to focus on is just showing that ILAC, IAF, and OIML are working together to make sure that the accreditations we're providing further help support this OIML-CS scheme, and also that there is this collaboration, ongoing effort, and activities to promote the acceptance of that, so those that are part of the scheme already can get the most benefit out of it. And hopefully from all the panel discussions today, you can see why it's effective, how it's been working, and look to find ways to implement the system in your own economies or expand the acceptance of it. So thank you very much for your time. That is all I have.
Muchísimas gracias a Robert.
Thank you very much, Rob, for all this information. And to wrap up this very important and interesting event that we have today, Andrea Melo, she is the chair of IAAC, the organization who is leading this type of meetings. You have the floor, Andrea. Thank you very much, Veronica.
It's a good day, everyone. I'm Andrea Melo from Accreditation Body in Brazil, and currently I am IAAC chair. It's a pleasure to receive all of you today for this important webinar. I've just arrived from a trip, but I couldn't lose this fantastic webinar. As we reach the end of this insightful webinar on the OIML-CS Certification System, I want to take a moment not only to thank you, but also to reflect on the greater meaning of our gathering here today. We did more than exchange technical cooperation. Today we build bridges, important bridges between institutions, between regions, between the shared value that guide us on our work, trust, transparency, and the public good. The OIML certification system is not just a tool, it's a symbol of international collaboration and mutual confidence. It reminds us that quality and maturity are not abstract concepts. They are the invisible foundations of fairness in trade, safety in society, and equity in global markets. In a world increasingly shaped by complexity and uncertainty, the systems we discussed today offer something powerful: certainty, credibility, and alignment that we are used in IAC. And this alignment is only possible when you work together, as we did today, with openness, purpose, and shared vision for the future. To the experts who so generously share their knowledge, to every participant who brought curiosity and commitment, and to our partners in that OIML, thank you so much. Your presence today is a clear sign that Inter-American Accreditation Cooperation is ready to move forward, not alone, but together, toward a future where metrology and accreditation are key enablers for development, innovation, and inclusion. Let us leave this event not just informed, but inspired. All of you, let's return to our organizations and countries with renewed energy to advance the quality infrastructure that our communities deserve. This journey continues, and IAC will walk it beside you. Thank you so much, and until we meet it again.
Así es, muchas gracias a todos quienes se dieron el tiempo y están conectados.
Thank you to all who have given up your time and who are connected. Almost 150 people who have heard this very important information about the progress and challenges of cooperation and the OIML, and we have emphasized the significance of these activities, and we hope that the technical results will contribute to all cooperation. Again, thank you very much, and I hope you have an excellent rest of the day.